So, what are my opinions on vegetarianism and veganism? And okay, from this point on, I'm just going to use the term vegetarianism to refer to both of them because it's too much of a mouthful to say vegetarianism and veganism every single time. So yeah, vegetarianism, what is my opinion on it? Well, I mean, it's complicated because on one hand, yes, I do believe that man-made climate change is real. I think all the facts, logic, data, statistics point toward it. However, that being said, I do think we need to balance our need to preserve the environment with a recognition of basic needs of human life. And the fact is, like, I don't see many people advocating going full Thanos or full Raymond Valentine on this issue. Like, I don't see many people advocating for like unironic global genocide or some sort of like drastic solution like that. So to me, it's like, okay, if you are proposing a solution that is going to negatively impact people's lives to that extent, it's like, frankly, you might as well be killing them. Because I do think that meat is an important cornerstone of a healthy diet. And yes, it's possible to have a healthy diet without meat for some people, but I don't think it's possible for everyone. Like, for instance, when you look at the foods that are touted as the main alternatives to meat, the biggest one is nuts. And it's like, yeah, if you have a nut allergy, you're kind of fucked there. Yeah, you're kind of fucked on that one. And furthermore, in addition to the food allergies issue, there's also food intolerances. Because, for instance, some people, for instance, get gas quite easily, and meat is actually one of the types of food that gives you gas the least. Now, I preface that by saying I mean like meat in its pure form. When you have meat with all sorts of fucking additives, condiments, toppings, whatever, then yeah, you can give yourself plenty of gas. But, I mean, if gas is an issue for you, then like, actual unadulterated meat, like just meat by itself, is actually one of the best things you can eat because it won't give you gas as much as like other foods, including many healthy foods. In fact, healthy foods can actually be worse for gas. So yeah, there's not only the issue of food allergies, but there's also the issue of food intolerances. And again, an intolerance, it won't kill you in the same way an allergy will, but it will make your life extremely unpleasant. So there's that. There's also the price issue. There's the fact that a lot of people, like, eating a vegetarian diet in many ways can be more expensive because it's like if you're making up for meat with like something like nuts, for instance, you're probably going to be spending a lot more money overall because of the sheer price of the amount of nuts that you would need to eat in order to make up for an equivalent amount of meat in terms of like the energy it gives you and how full it makes you feel. So there's that. And there's also just the cultural aspect of it because I think meat is a very important part of the cultural heritage of, well, most societies in the world, pretty much every society. Like when you look at like the ethnic food of any given country or ethnic group, meat always heavily factors into it. Some countries and groups more than others, but I think in every single case, meat is a big part of the equation. So there's that also, the cultural context, and just the fact that it just tastes good, it tastes delicious. So like all things considered, it's like, honestly, of all the things that we could get rid of or change about our lifestyles to combat climate change, I think meat should be last on the list. I think like meat would be like the thing to go after once we've exhausted every other single option. Well, actually, it wouldn't be the very last option. The very last option would be the Thanos option, but it's like, okay, if you don't want to go there, like meat would be the second last option. And it's like, okay, so like to me, that's something that would be just crossing a lot of lines. Another thing is, when they look at carbon emissions of different types of food, like they only look at things like cow farts, but they don't look at transportation related emissions. Because if you if you factor transportation into the equation, then all of a sudden importing bananas from Costa Rica becomes way more carbon intensive than if you're just taking into account like the growing of the bananas by themselves. So that's another thing. Like the fact they're not taking that into account, because like locally raised chicken versus importing bananas from Costa Rica, which one has higher net carbon emissions overall? I don't actually know the answer to that question, but I'm guessing that adding transportation emissions into the equation would skew it quite a bit differently than if you don't. And that's the problem. They don't take transportation emissions into account with these statistics that show, oh, meat is the type of food that produces the most carbon per capita. Like, they don't take that into account at all. And furthermore, they also don't take into account that certain types of meat are worse than others for carbon emissions per capita. They lump all meat in the same category, when in reality, I think beef produces like 6 times as much as chicken or something like that per capita. And they completely ignore that fact and gloss over it because, again, like vegetarians, they clearly have another agenda here. Like, it's not just about the environment. It's about the fact that they think animals are equivalent to people and that we shouldn't eat animals because they deserve full rights in the same way humans do. Like, that's basically what they believe, and it's disingenuous and in bad faith for them to pretend that it's entirely about the environment. And to be honest, before anyone jumps down my throat, I don't pretend like the things that I support are entirely about the environment either. Like, when I talk about immigration or suburbia or car culture and their negative impacts on the environment, I don't pretend that the environment is the only reason why I oppose these things or support restricting them more. So yeah, I mean, I think these are all like when looking at vegetarianism, I think these are a lot of good reasons to question their agenda and to also question their claims. Like they say that meat is inherently unhealthy, but there's no real proof of this because, like, talk to any doctor who's not a total hack, and they'll say that no, actually meat can be very healthy and can be an important part of a balanced diet. It is an important part of a balanced diet. Like, I trust my own body too, and the fact is I feel better after eating like unseasoned white people chicken breast than I do after eating like some fucking I don't know what, but like there's plenty of unhealthy shit that has nothing to do with like meat or animal products. Like some of these, like, you know, like baked goods or whatever. Like, I mean, it's just such bullshit saying that like meat is inherently unhealthy. It's like, no, it's not. Like, that's not true at all. That's the opposite of the truth. Now, I think anybody advocating like an all meat diet is insane. I think, yeah, there's such a thing as eating too much meat. There's such a thing as eating too much of anything. But the fact is that, yes, I do think meat is an important part of a balanced diet. And like, yeah, we can have maybe discussions on like what types of meat you should be eating, what types of meat are worse for the environment. You know, should there be anything done there? I mean, that's a whole other conversation. But I mean, the idea of just supporting banning meat altogether or supporting like shaming people into not eating meat under the false pretext that it's unhealthy is just, it's just stupid.